Hi, everyone. I'm Elizabeth Cantey, and this is another episode of Living Enlightened Every Day. And today we are exploring the gift of the goddess. I was somewhat inspired by the chapter of that title in Joseph Campbell's book, The Power of Myth. I'm Elizabeth Cantey, and I love helping people discover and find their passion and their love for life, their creativity, and their purpose. And I do this through coaching classes, through my book, Living Enlightened, The Joy of Integrating Spirit, Mind, and Body, and through this podcast. If you want to find out more, check out my website, elizabethcantey.com. I love this chapter in Joseph Campbell's book, The Power of Myth. This chapter is called The Gift of the Goddess, and the ideas of the powerful myths and stories that humanity and history has created all point us back to the truth of our being, that we are created in the image and likeness of God itself, that we're birthed from Source, which is neither feminine nor masculine, and yet, of course, includes both the feminine and the masculine, the God and the goddess. A while ago, I created and taught classes called Exploring World Religions and another class, Exploring World Mysticism. And it was amazing to me to see how all the God, goddess, and creation stories are so similar in every culture and across all the religions, even when they've been edited and redacted and mistold for centuries. Despite these layers of interpretation and cultural adaptations, these stories serve as reminders of our spiritual origin and our spiritual journey, if we allow them. There is something underneath all of these myths that calls to our hearts and our souls to wake up and remember the truth of our being. And this chapter, The Gift of the Goddess, points us back to the ideas of birth and rebirth, and what is rebirth but to be born again. And let's take that concept right back to its roots, that we are first physically born of woman, and then we are reborn as the spiritual man or spiritual woman, the enlightened one, that we are in this world, but not truly of it. And that when we fully integrate spirit, mind, and body, we remember and realize, which is making real for ourselves, the truth of who we are, that we are gods and children of the Most High. Joseph Campbell said, there's an idea of death to the past and birth to the future in our lives and in our thinking. Death to the animal nature and birth to the spiritual. For me, the gift of the goddess is this birthing and rebirthing of unconditional love in our lives. And the gift of the God is that strength and courage to implement it in each and every moment. And switching gears for a minute, have you noticed that when we are in love, we create heaven on earth? We just had February 14th, Valentine's Day. Maybe some of you were in love and you feel like you can do anything. Because instead of living from our egoic mind, that small mind, which is constantly projecting us into the past or into the future, the small mind, which keeps us limited in our thinking to what we already know, nothing new, the unconscious mind from which we run our patterns of thoughts and behaviors, most of which we've held on to since childhood. Instead, when we're in love, we begin to live our life from our conscious mind, the unlimited mind, God mind. And that is the energy of pure love. Science can now tell us that in our normal, everyday waking state, we are acting and reacting from 95% unconscious behaviors. They're called patterns of and habits. They're our conditioning, and we've been repeating it since childhood. But guess what happens when we're in love? That number flips. We begin acting and behaving and living in the present moment, unlocking our conscious creativity. It's that feeling that all is made new again, feeling like we are in heaven, walking on air, not a care in the world. Most of us associate these feelings with falling in love because most of us experience these thoughts, feelings, and behaviors of ecstatic freedom, walking on air, not having a care in the world. We experience that for the first time when we fall in love with another person. You know that feeling? The sky is bluer, the grass is greener, the air is crisper. We wake up with more energy than we knew was even possible. And we have this silly, fixed smile on our face, that Mona Lisa smile, like we have a secret, the best secret in the world. And we do. We are in love. But what if we are meant to feel like that all the time? What if we are meant to be in love all the time? What if we could fall in love again and live in that feeling, not with an individual, but with life itself, with all of life? And here's the kicker, with exactly how it shows up every day, each moment, this moment, right now. What if we felt like we were in love? We could operate from our conscious mind, that sense of conscious creativity, and stop living from those programmed past behaviors that are no longer serving us. We lessen the effect of past patterns on our life, and we begin to live in the present moment, consciously creating. Everything we look at is beautiful, has possibilities and potential. We live life like we're in love. I mean, how exciting is that? And we don't even have to wait for the perfect partner. We are the goddess, and we can create and nurture and birth a renewed expression of unconditional love in our life. That divine feminine is begging us to nurture the love that is already present. It's already there within us, just begging to unleash it as a renewed expression of who and what we are. We become reborn, born again in love, in spirit. And guess what happens when we do this? When we're fully present in this moment now? You know, the sky is bluer, the grass is greener, the air is crisper. We wake up with more energy, and everywhere we look, people are smiling at us because we have this silly smile fixed on our face of perfect peace. We are in love, just not with any particular person. I mean, you might be in love with a particular person, but this love, the love of the goddess, is not limited to any particular person. We are in love with spirit, with life itself. We're in love with ourself. Imagine that. We're in love with all of humanity and life exactly how it's showing up. Ernest Holmes said, "This great love which I now feel for the world is the love of God, and it is felt by all, and it comes back to me from all." We are always able to nurture and birth a renewed expression of love as us in our lives. I remember a time in my life where I learned about the power of unconditional love. And it was the first moment that I found out I was pregnant. And I know that not all of you listening to this have been pregnant. So I invite you to listen to the story as the goddess, the divine feminine, which is available to each one of us, every one of us. We are always birthing what comes next in our life, and the divine masculine is the strength and courage in each of us to fulfill it. So listen as if you are birthing a renewed expression of this divine love in your life. So the first moment that I found out I was pregnant, I was in love. And it was the first time in my life where I experienced an unconditional love. And it was not conditioned because this little life inside of me was making no promises. There were no conditions that he could fulfill. He wasn't promising to be good, to be kind, to listen, to obey, to pick up his room, to stay clean, to eat his veggies, to be smart and make good grades and get into a good college and get a good job and take care of his mom when she's old and gray. This little life wasn't even promising to come out. But there I was, truly, madly, deeply sensing this unconditional love for the first time. And if that wasn't enough, an even greater realization happened when he was born. Shortly after, I was holding this little life in my hands, and I had this revelation. I heard this voice. I heard this overwhelming, unconditional love that I was feeling. This, Elizabeth, is how you are meant to love everyone. And my first thought was, no, you got that wrong. That's impossible. I mean, this love is already impossible. And now I'm supposed to love everyone like this. And I understood that this is the love that Jesus spoke about. Love your neighbor as yourself, as your son, as your mother, as your lover, as your partner, as your best friend, as your brother. It was the love that the Buddhists speak about. It's the love that the Sufis write poetry about and dance to. It is the love of God for all its creations, not for the few. It is unconditioned. It is pure love. And in that moment, I remembered a song by Sting, which is so appropriate even now. It was called "I Hope the Russians Love Their Children Too." Do you remember that Cold War song? And in that moment, I knew, yes, the Russians do love their children too. And the Ukrainians and the Croatians and the Australians and the Africans and the South Americans and the Egyptians. And I realized that the Catholics the Protestants, the Jews, the Sufis, the Muslims, the Buddhists, the Hindus, the Jainists, the Taoists, the Baha'i, they all love their children too. Because a mother's love, this divine love, the love of the goddess, knows no boundaries, political, cultural, religious, or otherwise. A mother's love is unconditional. The goddess love is unconditional. The divine feminine love, which we all already are, is unconditional love. The goddess love is fierce and all-encompassing. Evan Hodkins says, the quality of God that gives of itself, nurtures life, and holds everything together is pure love, unconditional love. And the model that we've been given for this way of loving and living is motherhood. He says the only thing that gives us a chance to love as God loves is the fact that the feminine is within us, all of us. This is the magic of motherhood, of the divine mother. It is a get out of jail free card. The divine feminine liberates us from our prisons of feeling separate from one another, of living in fear and judgment. That's why we call it the divine feminine, divine motherhood. A mother's love is so complete, so nourishing, that it can only be God loving through them. When our love, all of us, each of us, when our love is so complete and so nourishing, it can only be God, Spirit, life, loving through us. This is our birthright. There is only one God, one source, one life, and it birthed all of humanity and all life on the planet, all the planet itself, all the planets. It hung the sun and the moon and the stars, created galaxies and the universe, and the power of its creation is unconditional love. We are that power, the divine feminine. We are that presence, the warrior goddess with the strength, the divine masculine, to love no matter what. Having my son taught me the power of unconditional love, and that I am to bring this love to every relationship, to not limit it to my special relationships. It taught me how to love everyone. What in your life has taught you the power of unconditional love? What is calling you, urging you to move into a greater expression of love in your relationships, in your family, with your partner, your spouse, your friends, your community? We are the instruments of this incredible power, not a God up there, out there. The love we see on the planet is the love that has already been given us, the love that we nurture and birth, the love that we give, the love that we share. It's this love that we create and recreate between us in every single moment, creating heaven on earth, living in that feeling of being in love. You know that feeling. The sky is bluer, the grass is greener, the air is crisper. We wake up with this energy, and everywhere we look, people are smiling at us because what we see is what we see from. We see love everywhere. So let us be the instruments of love. As we contemplate our own experiences of love and connection, we can be reminded of this immense potential within each of us to be the vessels of love, to nurture, to heal, to uplift all of those around us. Love in its purest forms knows no limits or conditions. It makes no promises. It is the very essence of our existence, the force that propels us toward unity, wholeness, and oneness. We can see that when we see from love. We were all born of woman, and now we choose to be reborn as spiritual man and spiritual woman, the God and the Goddess, the unconditional love and the strength and courage to live it, to be present to it, to experience it in each and every moment, in any circumstance, in every relationship. We see what we are being. Love is not an emotion, it's a state of being, a conscious choice to live from the depths of our being, an open heart, free from the constraints of fear and separation. This week, I invite you to ask yourself, who am I being? Am I being unconditional love? Or am I placing conditions on how love has to show up in my relationships, or on how I show up to give love? Am I restricting that, adding conditions to what is ultimately unlimited? What am I birthing or bringing into this moment right now, into this circumstance, into this relationship? Our birthright is being able to fully integrate spirit, mind, and body, both the divine feminine, the power of unconditional love, and the divine masculine, the strength and courage to live it. We create, when we do this, heaven on earth. I invite you to create your heaven in your world, living in love, being the love that is already within you all the time. It's going to be a fun week, being the goddess, the unconditional love. Unleash the inner goddess, surrounded by, enveloped in unconditional love. I hope you spend this week laughing, loving, and living enlightened as the goddess every day. And if you like this video, please hit like and subscribe and share it with a friend. Maybe they need to unleash their inner goddess, receiving the gifts of heaven on earth, living in unconditional love. Peace.
Thanks for watching. Join us again next Tuesday at 7 a.m. Mountain Time for Living Enlightened with Elizabeth Cantey. Integrating your spirit, mind, and body. Learn more at www.ntmedia.org.